Hello and welcome to this review of the revision question Dargeboard services from the March or June paper in 2017. An excellent question. Now if you're watching this as part of a revision course, then what I recommend is that you make sure that you've already looked at the revision notes on the performance hierarchy, the non-financial models, because there's a little bit of building block in this, and also read about the reward systems from the revision notes as well, because there's a heavy amount of this about reward systems. This is an excellent question, very mainstream, covering some really important ideas. Key performance indicators, building block models, reward systems, the appropriateness of all that compared to a mission. It's absolutely front and center of the exam, and a classic, I would say, an absolute classic Section A question for the paper. So, pressing on then, let's first of all go down to the bottom here and have a look at what we've been asked to do in the requirement. As is usual, it's a report. That is not uncommon, and so therefore there's professional marks available, isn't there, for writing a report. I mean, I really don't think people should worry too much about that, but clearly writing a report, it involves you in, putting a to and a from, put a date, put a title, report to the board, something like that, and then a very, very, very brief introduction. Please, please, please don't do too much on this. It's very easy 4 marks, but there's no need to write half a page. That's just crazy. So the introduction, as we'll see in a moment in the answer I show you, is really short, and I'm sure that's going to be enough. That should be enough to get you 3 marks. The 4th mark is probably for structure and headings. So if you're using the requirements 1, 2, 3, 4 here, as headings inside your report, that normally is enough. They're not too worried about the language that you use. They recognise, the ACCA recognise that a lot of people take this exam, if you like, in a foreign language, so the wording and the spelling is largely ignored, and I think that's good and quite generous of the ACCA and quite sensible, I would say. Okay, now then, let's have a look at the report contents. You're writing to the board, responding to the CEO's instruction for work in some areas. And if you look at number 1 there, at the link between KPIs and mission. Now that's a really common exam question, the link between KPIs and mission. The performance hierarchy indicates that whatever you've got in your mission, and indeed your position analysis, and indeed your strategy, the performance management system, in this case the KPIs, should be entirely consistent with that. And what you'll find is sometimes the KPIs are not appropriate, or sometimes the KPIs are completely missing. In other words, there'll be something in the mission that isn't mentioned in the KPIs. And it's that sort of evaluation of the existing KPI system that is examining. That is absolutely front and centre of the syllabus. Now you can see straight away here that what I've got, if you like, is a normal report format. Report to the board, from, it doesn't really matter who you write it from, don't worry too much about that, say accountant, say performance manager, it really isn't that important. Put a date, this is the date I happen to write this answer, if you like, but you can just put the date of the exam. A little title, Performance Management Dargeboard Services, keep this very brief, and then literally, look how brief this is. Why would I spend 2 or 3 paragraphs introducing a report? You're not adding anything, you're simply rewriting the question. Really don't do that. And I would just simply say, look, it's dealing with the current issues concerning performance management within Dargeboard services. I've then cut and pasted the title, and I would do that into TestReach. So the link between KPIs and mission. It reminds me, doesn't it, how many marks there are? 8, and I'm now going to try and answer this. Now, good structure is really important, and it would seem to me that possibly the best way of doing this is to deal with each part of the mission statement: maintaining profitable growth, developing best talent, delivering a world-class service, yeah, and efficiency. Those were the 4 things mentioned, weren't they? And then talk about whether or not the existing KPIs are dealing with these 4 areas effectively. Now, clearly, to be able to do that, what I'm going to have to do is have a look at those KPIs, right, which were included within the Dargeboard's dashboard. So what we've got is operating profit margin, secured revenue, and underneath here it says secured revenue is long-term recurring revenue. Long-term recurring revenue. This is the percentage of budget revenue which is already contracted. So it's giving that idea that we've got some revenue and we're secured with it in terms of it's a contracted thing. We're measuring management retention. Yeah. Does that tie in with the mission? It does to some extent, doesn't it? Admittedly, it says it only includes those employees on full-time contracts. Now remember, commenting on the assumptions and the methodology is something for part B, not for part A. The order book is the total cash value of future contracted revenues. That's looking to the future, admittedly 10 years into the future. The operating profit margin excludes exceptional items, which is normally what would happen. You would exclude exceptional items, and there's some figures given there, and I might use those in part 2. And then it says organic revenue growth is calculated using total revenue figures as reported in the account. So we're reporting revenue growth. Admittedly, I don't like this. It includes net acquisitions, and you wouldn't normally do that in a like-for-like calculation. And we've also got return on capital employed. So those are the KPIs that we're using, and what you need to do is think about the extent to which they relate to these points. Now, normally in questions, maintaining profitable growth is normally well catered for in KPIs, and I would say there is no exception here. Yeah, this element of the mission, I've said, this element of the mission is probably best catered for by the KPIs. Make a positive comment. Because if you look at it, we've got revenue growth, secured revenue, operating profit margins are all measures which are measures of profitability, and they are clearly linked to the mission. Tick. Well done. Well done, client. Yeah. And equally, the business measures the order book, and of course this is therefore a sort of tilt towards the maintainable element of the profitable growth. The order book is the future, and so this is again emphasizing the future more than the present, which I think is a good point to make.